With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories. Premier Brantley highlights Unity and Transformation in Address at Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025.
Prime Minister Drew delivers inspiring opening remarks at Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025.
Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025, a call for inclusive action and youth empowerment in the face of climate challenges. Police arrest Zadik Butler in connection with Marsham murder. Police investigate Frigate Bay traffic accident, one warded at JNF General Hospital. Grenada Postal Cooperation workers continue protest action, demanding urgent action over alleged hazardous conditions. Guyana President announces September 1st, 2025 election date. Internationally, German Chancellor promises to help Ukraine produce long-range missiles. Now, the details. The Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, delivered a compelling address during the opening session of the 2025 Global Sustainable Island Summit on May 27, 2025, emphasizing the vital role of unity and collective political will within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Speaking candidly about the shared commitment required for true sustainability, Premier Brantley praised the cooperative efforts led by Prime Minister the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew's administration.
I want to start by commending the organizers of this very important summit, this very important conference. I want to commend you because it helps to put St. Kitts and Nevis at the very epicenter of what we are seeking to achieve in our region, which is climate resilience, and ensure that we have the type of economic transformation that can only come from an understanding of our place in the world and our desire to be a sustainable island state.
He underscored that political will often remains an overlooked factor among the challenges to sustainability initiatives.
None of this is possible without political will. Oftentimes, we talk about the lack of capacity, we talk about the lack of financing. Very rarely do we talk about the lack of political will.
Drawing attention to the cooperative relationship that has blossomed since Dr. Drew assumed office in August 2022, Premier Brantley shared a personal anecdote about their early discussions.
In the very first week, in fact, I recall it was in the first 2 days of his prime ministership, he and I met at his office here in Bastia. And we decided that we will make this idea of renewable energy, and more specifically the geothermal project in Nevis, a national priority.
He credited the Prime Minister's leadership for propelling the project that promises to position St. Kitts and Nevis at the forefront of renewable energy in the region.
And I commend him because a lot of what has happened, a lot of the attention, a lot of the energy that we have in the room and around the region and around the world associated with this project has really come from that political will and that commitment. And so, for a very long time, we tried to do that project as a Nevis project, and it didn't work because Nevis, as an island, didn't have access to the multilateral agencies, to the funding agencies, to friendly governments. St. Kitts couldn't do the project on its own either, because the resource is located on Nevis.
Premier Brantley reflected that the path forward was clear despite the delay in recognizing the need for a united approach.
And so it made absolute good sense. And maybe we wonder in retrospect, why did it take 20 years for us to finally understand that we can't do this without the necessary political will? So, Prime Minister, thank you. And I say thanks to all that you've done and all that you keep trying to do in this regard.
Turning to the transformative nature of the geothermal project, he painted a vivid picture of the Federation's sustainable energy future.
The journey on which we are embarked is truly transformative. That the geothermal resource in particular, that the scientists tell us is below the Earth's crust on the island of Nevis, is sufficient to power not only Nevis, not only St. Kitts and Nevis, but also to power some of our neighboring islands. I joked yesterday with some representatives who are Nevis from St. Martin to tell them we'll soon be sending power to them.
But beyond jest, he stressed the real economic impact.
The idea really is that we can become a net exporter of energy. And we have a situation where we have a surplus of energy that we're trying to tap into. And becoming a net exporter of energy means that we can transform our economy to an energy-based economy.
Premier Brantley elaborated on the broader implications of such transformation for the island's youth and economy.
So whilst we're ticking the box in relation to climate change and our role and our fight in that global struggle, which we are involved, we are also at the same time doing something that can transform our economy, that can create new jobs, that can wean us off our dependence currently on tourism. Not that we are replacing tourism, but we're seeking to do something in addition to tourism, in addition to the various other industries. We're talking about innovation. We're talking about new jobs. We're talking about the possibility of our young people whom you have heard from this morning having real opportunity in this, the land of their birth.
Addressing the ongoing challenges of brain drain, he expressed hope for a reversal.
That when they go off to the UK or Canada or the US to study, there's no need for them to stay there. They can now come back. And so what was a brain drain becomes a brain gain for St. Kitts and Nevis and for the region.
Premier Brantley called the geothermal initiative more than just another energy project.
This is not just another conference. This is not just another energy experiment or undertaking. This is just not another few solar panels on a roof. We're talking about true transformation in St. Kitts and Nevis.
He highlighted the strategic advantage held by the Federation's geography in advancing this transformation.
If we can harness this geothermal energy, we have a program now where we're talking about a single grid between St. Kitts and Nevis. And I say it every chance I get that St. Kitts and Nevis is so blessed that whilst there are other multi-island states in the region, it's hard to bridge Trinidad and Tobago, it's hard to bridge Antigua and Barbuda, but St. Kitts and Nevis is only 2 miles at the closest point.
Inviting attendees to witness the close ties and accessibility between the islands, he extended a unique invitation. The Premier described how this proximity enables practical infrastructure improvements that facilitate sustainability goals, projecting a vision of affordable clean energy. Premier Brantley noted the direct benefits to ordinary citizens.
In fact, I invite you all to come back in April of next year when we do a swim from the island of Nevis to the island of St. Kitts. This year, 500 people did the swim. I confess I did it too, but I was on a boat. But if you're minded, you can come. But it only speaks to how close the two islands are, and that geography allows us to do undersea cables quite easily, to connect these two islands quite easily, to build in the necessary redundancies. And can you imagine a St. Kitts and Nevis now with an abundant supply of clean, green, cheap energy, weaning ourselves entirely off fossil fuels for the generation of electricity for our people, the savings that the mom and pop shop, the single mother, will now be able to achieve.
He foresaw green innovations transforming key sectors, especially tourism. Premier Brantley also described the potential for exporting green energy.
But beyond that, imagine a St. Kitts and Nevis where our entire tourism industry is now green. Electric cars, electric scooters, the entire greening of the Marriott where you are now and the other hotels and hotel plant in the Federation. Imagine the new jobs that can be created. And imagine the possibility of exporting power so that we're not only energizing our country, we also have the potential to export power using the same undersea cable technology to neighboring islands.
Expanding on technological advancements, he introduced the cutting-edge concept of Power to X, which could revolutionize the island's economy.
But imagine the possibilities of what the experts are calling Power to X. The ability to have green hydrogen, green ammonia, the ability to power up ships, especially now as the IMO is saying that ship owners need to transition. The possibilities are endless.
Reflecting on the broader significance of energy independence, Premier Brantley spoke with resolve about insulating the Federation's economy from global energy disruptions.
If we can achieve energy independence, wean ourselves off fossil fuels, ensure that we are no longer subject to the exogenous shocks that occur in energy-producing nations around the world, that our people here are no longer paying higher prices because somebody somewhere decides they want to go to war.
This visionary approach includes addressing water scarcity through renewable energy-powered desalination. Recognizing the critical nature of water resources on small islands, he explained the implications. He identified the prohibitive cost of electricity as a barrier to desalination, efforts.
Energy independence, clean, green energy, allows us to do something else. It allows us to harness our oceans around us and to use that well-known process of desalination to get clean, potable water. Many of us come to islands and we don't realize how difficult it is in terms of our water resources on these islands. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, virtually all of our water currently comes from underground aquifers. Overuse leads to real difficulty. So as we talk about sustainability, we must also talk about water. And we are surrounded by ocean. What has been our obstacle? Our obstacle has been the cost of electricity. So we can't do desalination because the cost of electricity makes the water that we get from desalination too expensive for our people.
Premier Brantley outlined the cascading benefits of addressing energy and water independence.
With energy independence, clean, cheap energy, we can now do desalination on a large scale. We solve the water problem. You know what other problem you solve when you have plenty of water? You solve food problem. Farmers now have as much water as they need to grow food.
He concluded with a powerful summation of the transformative vision.
I hope you realize I'm ticking the boxes. Energy independence, water independence, food independence, economic independence, new jobs, a new paradigm, a new country.
The Premier's address sets a tone of optimism and determination at the summit, signaling the Federation's unwavering commitment to advancing sustainable development through national unity, innovative energy solutions, and a bold economic transformation agenda. The momentous occasion highlights St. Kitts and Nevis's growing leadership role within the Caribbean and the global movement toward resilient, sustainable island futures.
A transformational and innovative leader, one who dared to shift systems, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew, delivered opening remarks at the Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025. Prime Minister Drew said the Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025 serves as a clarion call for island nations to rethink, reimagine, and reforge their shared destinies as island nations. He promoted St. Kitts and Nevis' Sustainable Island State Agenda, which incorporates sustainable, inclusive solutions to combat the climate crisis.
Our decision to bring this third edition of the summit to St. Kitts and Nevis was rooted in more than national pride. It was rooted in responsibility. For too long, small island developing states like ours have been invited to the table late, if at all, and hardly to ever speak in the mic. Too often, our stories are footnotes, our data are averages, and our innovations are overlooked. But we know, and the world is beginning to recognize, that islands are not just the periphery. We are the pulse. We are on the front lines of climate change, but, and I dare say, we are also on the front line of solutions. This is why partnership must be at the heart of everything we do. It is not enough for each island to weather its own storm alone. The winds that reach Dominica are the same that lash the Philippines. The heat waves scorching the Pacific mirror those straining water systems here in the Caribbean. And the answers we uncover in the Indian Ocean may very well hold relevance here in the Atlantic Basin. This is the spirit that must define this summit. Partnership without pretense, community without condition, and exchange without ego. It is only through this kind of intentional, honest cooperation that we will build truly sustainable island states, ones that are not only climate resilient, but socially just, economically diverse, and culturally grounded.
Prime Minister Drew emphasized the importance of small island states pooling their voices together and sharing workable solutions to make a significant impact on the global stage.
Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have taken the challenge of sustainability and made it a national compass. Through our Sustainable Island State Agenda, or CISA, we have embarked on a bold whole-of-society transformation. CISA is not a slogan. It is a framework that touches every part of our national life. It guides how we generate our energy, how we manage our water, how we grow our food, how we shape our cities, and how we care for our beloved people. It pushes us to build smarter homes, how our countries with the sun tap into geothermal energy beneath our soil and teach our children not just how to succeed in the world, but how to sustain it. The decision to host this summit is inextricably linked to that commitment. This is not a showpiece. It is an extension of our work. It is a deliberate opportunity to bring the world into our laboratory of sustainability, to see what we are building, to share what we are learning, and to create new pathways together.
In attendance at the forum were numerous local climate champions and leaders, joined by colleagues from around the globe.
The Global Sustainable Islands Summit, GSIS 2025, opened with a warm welcome from the Honorable Dr. Joel Clark, Minister responsible for Sustainable Development and Climate Action, underscoring the urgent need for united and ambitious approaches to sustainability among island nations worldwide. Hosting this milestone event in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Clark addressed delegates representing a myriad of island territories stretching from the Cayman Islands to the Canary Islands, Martinique to the Marshall Islands, and St. Eustatius to Seychelles.
Welcome to our home, a place where sustainability is transcending ambition and becoming a living, breathing national commitment.
She poignantly acknowledged the shared geographical and environmental realities that bind island nations, especially the acute awareness of the climate crisis.
As coastal island nations, we understand, St. Kitts and Nevis understands, perhaps more intimately than most, the urgency of the climate crisis. That is why we are aggressively and ambitiously pursuing our sustainable development and our sustainable island state agenda.
The minister elaborated that this summit moves beyond the digital sphere of streaming and sharing, aiming instead to
concretize our discussions, to give weight, substance, and reality to bold ideas that will be exchanged.
She emphasized the importance of forging partnerships and leaving with transformative, actionable solutions that will safeguard lives, livelihoods, and ecosystems for generations to come. Highlighting youth involvement, Dr. Clark enthusiastically invited youth leaders from the Island Youth Forum to share their experiences and perspectives, recognizing their role as vital voices of the future. At the heart of the summit's opening, one of St. Kitts and Nevis's inspiring young voices, Akwanje Robinson, delivered a stirring and thought-provoking intervention that echoed the urgency of truly inclusive sustainable development. As a young changemaker and advocate, Robinson represented youth not only from the Caribbean but from as far afield as the Maldives and Fiji, reflecting the global nature of the climate challenge confronting the small island developing states of the world.
I greet you in the spirits of island youth, proud, resilient, and fiercely committed. I stand not only as one voice, but as a vessel carrying the hopes, truths, and urgency of young people across the globe.
He emphasized that despite repeated calls for inclusion, youth voices are often too relegated to symbolic roles that lack genuine power.
We are tired of youth consultations that feel more like photo ops than true collaboration. Gatherings where refreshments are served, opinions are aired, and then silence. No follow-up, no power, just presence without progress.
Robinson's call was clear and uncompromising.
We are not ornamental. We are not your checkboxes. We are the architects of the future who deserve a seat at the table, not just when it's time to smile for the camera, but when decisions are being made.
He reminded the audience that young people today have grown up fully immersed in a climate-altered reality and therefore possess a unique and essential perspective on climate leadership. A poignant moment during the forum, he reflected, was the
silent applause, open hands waved in the air to honor our disabled youth,
which encapsulated what true inclusion should feel like, authentic and empowering. Addressing leaders and policymakers directly, Robinson urged,
let spaces like these not just end at speeches. Let them feed real policy. Let them open doors to planning, to budgeting, to impact.
He spoke candidly about broader societal injustices deeply rooted in historical exploitation, warning that without addressing vulnerabilities and systemic oppression, progress will remain elusive.
We are not just leaders of tomorrow, we are capable contributors of today. We are not interested in inheriting a planet in crisis wrapped in promises.
The summit takes place against a backdrop of growing climate challenges that disproportionately impact SIDS. These nations face escalating threats from sea level rise, more frequent and intense tropical cyclones, and coastal erosion that imperil their economies and ecosystems. Compounding these environmental burdens are persistent barriers in accessing financing vital for adaptation and resilience building. Many SIDS are excluded from concessional finance mechanisms due to their income classifications, despite their unique vulnerabilities and substantial adaptation needs. The financial gap undermines effective climate action, leaving island communities at continued risk. Dr. Clark's leadership and the summit's agenda reflect a determination to transform this narrative. Hosting global island leaders, innovators, and youth advocates, GSIS 2025 aims to catalyze partnerships and pioneering solutions across key thematic areas, including water and energy sustainability, agricultural resilience, climate health, interactions, and geothermal energy development. This gathering builds on momentum from the recent 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States, SIDS 4, providing a critical platform for islands to assert their voices and drive the sustainable transition needed for their survival and prosperity. As the summit progresses, the compelling calls from both established leaders and the island youth community serve as a resounding reminder. Island sustainability is not merely a sectoral policy issue, but a shared existential mandate that requires inclusivity, innovation, and bold partnership. Dr. Clark welcomed the delegates and guests to the Island Federation,
where St. Kitts is sweet as sugar and Nevis is pure niceness.
as the world engages in this critical dialogue that seeks not only to envision, but to enact a resilient, just future of small islands everywhere. In a development in the investigation into the fatal shooting of 38-year-old Ricardo Marsham and the attempted murder of 41-year-old Terence Richin, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has formally charged 23-year-old Zadik Butler of Keon with conspiracy to commit murder. The charge was laid on Tuesday, 27th May 2025, following extensive inquiries by the Violent Crimes Unit. The incident, which unfolded on May 21st, 2025 on Tuckett Street, Ponds Pasture, saw Marsham tragically lose his life while Richin survived multiple gunshot wounds and remains in stable condition. Preliminary investigations revealed that the victims were socializing at a business establishment owned by Richin when a lone gunman opened fire, fleeing the scene immediately thereafter. The police force emphasized that the arrest is part of an ongoing, thorough investigation, assuring the public that all leads are being actively pursued. Authorities continue to urge the public to assist in the investigative process by coming forward with any information that may be relevant. As the investigation progresses, further updates will be provided by the authorities. At approximately 7:30 a.m. on May 27, 2025, a traffic accident occurred along Southwell Drive, Frigate Bay, involving two vehicles, a motor pickup PA1263 owned by Sugars and driven by Pramnath Pahalad of New Pond site, and a motor car P409 owned and operated by Elric Clark of St. Peter's. Many were astonished as pictures and videos of the accident circulated on social media depicting the scene. According to the police, preliminary investigations by the Frigate Bay Police indicated that motorcar P409 was traveling in a south to north direction toward Bastaire, closely following two vehicles ahead. Clark attempted to overtake both vehicles, successfully passing the first when the collision occurred. The motor pickup PA1263 was making a right turn into an intersection at the time of the impact. The force of the collision caused Clark's vehicle to overturn several times before it came to a rest against a wall on the eastern side of Southwell Drive. Emergency medical services promptly transported both drivers to the Joseph and France General Hospital. Pahalad did not report any immediate physical injuries. However, he was kept under observation for elevated blood pressure. Clark sustained multiple injuries, including lacerations to his head and face, bruising on his right leg, and complaints of headache and upper back pain. He is currently admitted to the hospital's surgical ward and is reported to be in stable condition. Both vehicles suffered extensive damage as a result of the accident. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has launched an active investigation into the incident to determine all factors involved and to prevent future occurrences. The police have reminded motorists that overtaking is a high-risk maneuver demanding utmost vigilance. Drivers are urged to ensure that the road ahead is clear, to observe road markings strictly, and to avoid overtaking at junctions, intersections, or other places deemed unsafe. Reckless or poorly timed overtaking can put lives at risk and carry severe consequences for all road users. Road safety is a shared responsibility. By exercising caution and adhering to the traffic laws, drivers can contribute to safer roads for everyone in St. Kitts and Nevis. In regional news, Grenada Postal Cooperation workers continue protest action, demanding urgent action over alleged hazardous conditions. Grenada Broadcasting Network has the details.
It's day 2 of protests at the Grenada Postal Corporation over what workers claim is hazardous working conditions at the Buns Point facility in St. George. Approximately 30 staff members remained outside the building, visibly united with red ribbons. They say they can no longer continue working in an environment plagued by mold, termites, and other long-standing health and safety issues. The workers are calling for urgent intervention to ensure a safe and healthy workplace.
From the union end and from the GPC end, we still are waiting word, so we are outside with a silent protest, no noise. But if nothing happens today, then tomorrow we will have the drums, we will be singing and shouting.
Newly elected First Vice President of the Public Workers Union, Lyndon Ferrer, who represents the protesting workers, provided an update on the situation. He confirmed that the union has received correspondence from the management of GPC, but declined to disclose the details. Ferrer stated that the union has since issued a response and is awaiting a reply. In the meantime, protest action continues as employees stand firm in their call for immediate improvement to their working environment. The union has emphasized that the condition at the Buns Point facility not only pose serious risk to employees, but also to the health and safety of customers who utilize the services. The PWU says these issues can no longer be ignored. The news team also sought an update from the management of GPC, but was told that they were unable to give one at this time. Rena P. Thomas, GBN News.
Guyana President announces September 1st, 2025 election date, News Source Guyana reports.
In an independence address to the nation on Sunday night, President Irfan Ali announced that general elections will take place on the 1st of September 2025. The elections will take place exactly 1 month after the president celebrates his 5th year in office. The president is now expected to issue the proclamation soon to dissolve the National Assembly, as the country will swing into full election mode. In a statement moments after the president's announcement, the General Secretary of the governing PPP, the Vice President Barra Jagdeo, welcomed the announcement of the election date. Mr. Jagdeo said his party, the People's Progressive Party, is ready to deliver its message of continued progress to the people of Guyana in the upcoming elections. He said since returning to office in 2020, the government hit the ground running, and they have not looked back. Mr. Jagdeo said in the face of a global pandemic, the government acted decisively, expanding COVID-19 testing, securing life-saving vaccines, reopening the economy, and restoring essential public services. He said within just 40 days that they passed an emergency budget to remove burdensome taxes, support vulnerable groups, and revive critical sectors of the economy. Mr. Jagdeo said the PPP government has exceeded its 2020 manifesto by listening to the needs of the people and taking decisive action. He said the party's re-election campaign will focus on its plans to build on the party's strong foundation in office. Meanwhile, the People's National Congress reform-led APNU did not immediately offer a response to the announcement of the election date. However, in its Independence Day message, the PNC said as Guyana observes its 59th independence, the country is faced with mismanagement, corruption, and incompetence, and the acts of political domination and oppression under the current PPP.
We now bring you these international reports.
President Zelensky is there for the first time since Friedrich Merz became Germany's new chancellor. They've just had a press conference, which we kept across. They talked about how focusing on further peace talks with Russia was part of their agenda, new sanctions against Moscow as well, and also talk about endorsing Ukraine's right to conduct long-range missile strikes into Russian territory. That would align Germany with other Western allies. But we were looking for some clarification around Germany's Taurus missiles. Mikey is still with me. We heard from Chancellor Merz. He said we are financing Ukrainian-made long-range missiles with no range limits, Mikey. So that suggests that they're not going to just hand over these Taurus missiles.
Yeah, there's a lot of sensitivity surrounded that. Zelensky does have a deep strike capability. He's got drones that have been conducting deep strikes for a while now. He's also got something called Long Neptune. Neptune started off as an anti-shipping missile, but they've advanced that, and it's now got a range of about 1,000 kilometers. But what Taurus and Storm Shadow give, that what Zelensky's current organic deep strike capability doesn't have, is the ability to have this bunker buster effect. So what Taurus can do, what Storm Shadow can do, is it can target hardened facilities, command and control structures, for example. So if Zelensky, through this deal, manages to get a bunker buster capability, he will be able to target command and control and logistics resupply, pushing that back further into Russian territory, which will make it harder for Putin to be able to resupply any infantry movements in the occupied territories, for example.
A French court on Wednesday found retired surgeon Joël Le Squarnec guilty of sexually abusing hundreds of young patients in his care, some of whom were children under anaesthetic. He was handed the maximum 20-year sentence. Le Squarnec's abuse of his patients is considered France's worst case of pedocriminality to go on trial. The 74-year-old stood accused of the aggravated rape or sexual assault of 299 victims. He told the court he committed despicable acts while working as a doctor in Western France over a 25-year period. Presiding judge Aude Bourresi, whose voice at times appeared to choke with emotion, said Le Squarnec had preyed on his victims when they were at their most vulnerable. During the trial, Le Squarnec told the court that he was aware that the harm he had caused was irreparable. Despite understanding the victim's desire for a life sentence, the judge explained that the law prevented her from imposing it. Le Squarnec is already serving time for previous convictions. In 2020, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for raping and sexually assaulting a child neighbor, his 2 nieces, and a 4-year-old patient. In 2005, he was convicted of downloading images of child sexual abuse and received a suspended jail sentence. Yet he continued working in public hospitals. The court ordered Le Squarnec to be placed on the sex offenders register and also barred him from practicing medicine or having contact with minors. The extent of Le Squarnec's abuse was revealed after his rearrest in 2017 on suspicion of raping his 6-year-old neighbor. Police uncovered electronic diaries that appear to detail over 2 decades of assaults on young patients, alongside a collection of sex dolls, wigs and child pornography. Local prosecutors in Vannes, a small town in Brittany, have launched a separate investigation to determine if there was any criminal liability by agencies or individuals who could have prevented the abuse.
One company that didn't see its shares rally on Tuesday is PDD Holdings, the Chinese of online shopping platform Temu. US-listed shares of the e-commerce giant fell by more than 13% on Tuesday after it reported a near 50% drop in profit as recent US trade policies added to its struggles in its home country. Our Asia business reporter Katie Silver has the latest.
It's a company that has seen huge growth in recent years. So in announcing these results, they said that they had made about 15 billion yuan or $2 billion in profits in the first 3 months of this year. That's almost half of what it made the same time the year prior. And it comes as PDD faces challenges both at home and abroad. Now, at home in China, there's weak consumer spending, and that's seen PDD having to battle out with its rivals like Alibaba and JD.com. And that's caused heavy discounting across the board as they fight to maintain market share. And then, of course, there are those challenges from abroad, from both sides of the Atlantic. From the US and Europe, they're both looking at how to crack down on the shipment of small parcels, which so far haven't attracted tax. Now, earlier this month, the Trump administration ended the de minimis exemption, and that allowed parcels that were worth less than $800 to enter the US without being hit by import duties. It's currently in the middle of a 90-day pause on that, and the taxes are due to be charged again in early August. We also heard last week from the EU, which is proposing charging a flat fee of about €2 on small parcels that arrive from China. And about 90% of these, rather, come from China, many from the likes of Temu and its rival Shein. Now, in reporting this profit drop, PDD's chairman laid the blame at what he called the radical change in external policy environments, such as tariffs, and said that the trade war had created significant pressure for our merchants. And of course, you might remember Temu announced it was going to stop selling goods from China directly to US customers and indeed move some of its production onto American shores.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: Premier Brantley highlights unity and transformation in address at Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025.
Prime Minister Drew delivers inspiring opening remarks at Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025.
Global Sustainable Islands Summit 2025, a call for inclusive action and youth empowerment in the face of climate challenges. Police arrest Zadik Butler in connection with Marsham murder. Police investigate Frigate Bay traffic accident, one warded at JNF General Hospital. Grenada Postal Cooperation workers continue protest action, demanding urgent action over alleged hazardous conditions. Guyana President announces September 1st, 2025 election date. Internationally, German Chancellor promises to help Ukraine produce long-range missiles. Thank you for listening.